Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I'm Juliet.
We've got another fun challenge review episode. Every month we give a design challenge to our listeners. That means we give you some parameters, some bonus points to shoot for, and you send us cards. And this month you've rewarded us with a ton of submissions, so we got a whole bunch of cards to look at today, and I'm sure they'll all be crazy. What was their challenge?
So February, the shortest month out of the year, but we still got plenty of great submissions. Our February design challenge was 4 weeks. Design a card that can be cast one way for 2 mana and another way for 8. And then our bonus points that I think really get us to another place, which is roses are red, violets are blue. The 2 costs involve different colors. And honey is sweet and so are you. Make some part of your card rhyme with itself.
Do we have to do a couple reads on some of these cards to get the meter right? I'm going to rely on your expertise to tweak these.
Yeah, we can examine these cards both for, all of the normal things we'll study for Magic and Magic design and card design and gameplay and the combination of flavor, and also both the prosody and the poesy.
Love it. This is great.
As we always say.
Hell yeah. Yes.
One of the best lines of all time, as we always say. As we always say, the god of poets is not Apollo.
Oh, okay.
Poetry, as we will see, is not about beauty, but it is about being incorrect correctly.
Oh.
The god of poets is Hermes because poetry is it is a way of using art and words to do something other than directly describing a thing.
Okay.
But then you start from the description and your brain walks that path from the description to whatever it is describing, the poetic language to some sort of meaning. And that walking, that journey from the language to the meaning, that's a journey. So that's under the purview of the god Hermes rather than the god of art and beauty, Apollo.
I love this. To connect very quickly between two concepts. Mm-hmm. All righty. Well, what's our first card?
So our first submission is from Cryptrat. It's Replicurrency. It's 4 generic mana, then blue, blue, red, red. So 8 mana total. We'll see a lot of that. For a rare sorcery with each non-land permanent your opponents control is a treasure artifact with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. And then it's got blue, red, discard this card, create a treasure token in the style of the Prismari. These are little hybrid blue-reds to pay 2 and discard this, create a treasure.
Yeah, in Strixhaven we had the Prismari, it Color Guild, and they had, or school, and they all had this like, hey, you don't have 8 mana yet? All right, just pay 2 mana, discard this, create a treasure token. Which is not that good on its own, but is sometimes like an okay backup. Mm-hmm. And then the main point of this card is it turns all of your opponent's non-land permanents into treasures, which is pretty close to destroying all of them, but not exactly. Mm-hmm. Like they get a treasure, they can bounce those cards later, they can, kind of undo that or whatever. But yeah, this is like 8 mana, remove most of your opponent's stuff.
If your opponent has an X spell or some like multi-kicker, some really big thing, they can then cash in all of these extra treasures they've got, plus tapping all of their lands to kind of get back onto the battlefield in a big way. This does allow some kind of play. I would also then worry about maybe we shouldn't worry about this 8 mana sorcery being too strong because it is an 8 mana card to get there. But like you played alongside some sort of Karn Null Rod effect, but that also makes sure to stop mana abilities, But Replicurrency, just like you're doing the Midas touch thing and just turning everybody else's stuff into gold instead of itself.
So if you play this one-on-one, this is sort of just like nuke your opponent and the game's probably over. But I sort of think this is maybe nice or at least fun in multiplayer in EDH
Mhm.
because people tend to have more cards in hand. They tend to not have enough mana to play all their cards and stuff like that. So unlike something that just like bounces everything and okay, everyone's got to replay the same permanence again. This is like, hey, everything's gone, but guess what? You get an acceleration into rebuilding the board.
And you can treat this as, hey, this is going to ramp me towards my commander, or hey, this is going to ramp me towards my
Yeah,
permanent ramp piece. This is going to get me from 1 to 3 mana or 2 to 3 mana or something like that with the just pay two and discard for a treasure in order to
yeah.
get another piece out. And then, hey, if I draw this at the perfect time, goodbye, the current board state.
Yeah, and I think like so Magma Opus is like the Prismari mythic that already exists and it like creates some elementals and taps some stuff and draws some cards, does a whole bunch of stuff for you. And it has that same like 2 mana discard create a treasure token.
Mhm.
On that card, that's actually kind of desirable. It's sort of like it's self discard, so then you put it in the graveyard so that you can then use something to cheat it from the graveyard into play. And I think Replicurrency might have that same sort of effect where a lot of Izzet decks, Spellslinger, EDHE decks, or even just like cube decks or other kind of casual decks will have ways to sort of combo with it being in the graveyard that it can't do with it in hand.
Mhm. That is one of my favorite pieces of game design from a like story mechanic connection perspective,
Oh,
where like as an art school idea, hey, I'm working towards this really incredible thing, or I just desperately need to sell out right now. And so you have, even though it isn't like named sellout, I always think of it as like the
yeah.
sellout mechanic that
Okay.
you can sell out your big dream and get the treasure now rather than, dying with a eight
Hmm,
mana card in your hand.
very good. Are we counting rhyming as like, hey, I turn things into treasure, or I could turn myself into treasure? Does that fall under rhyming to you?
You know, if a card today was submitted and it just had rebound, and it was like,
Hmm.
haha, that's the rhyming part, I might be like, okay, maybe we discuss it. I don't think this is quite rhyming. I mean, it's rhyming with
Okay.
history in the style of Star Wars, but bringing
Ah,
back a mechanic from the past is not. But I would say the bonus point specifically says make some part of your card rhyme with itself. But yeah, this
alrighty.
is a 8 and 2 in a sense.
All right. Our next card is from Crafted Lava is True, and it's called Make Them Leave. 8 mana, 6 white, black for a sorcery at rare. It has Cleave for blue, blue. Cleave is the thing where you can cast the spell for the cleave cost, and if you do, you have to remove the words in square bracket. This is a little hard to do audio wise, so I'm gonna try to make this extra clear. The first part of this card says put up to 4 target creatures and/or creature cards in graveyards on top of their owners' libraries, and then the unbracketed text is each opponent mills 8 cards.
Okay, so if we were spending exactly blue blue, like counterspell mana,
Yeah,
for this sorcery, we would remove the words in the square brackets. So it would be blue blue for each opponent mills 8 cards. Okay. Alternatively, if we pay 6 white black, so no blue required at all, we pay the 8 mana, the card would read put up to 4 target creatures and or creature cards in graveyards on top of their owner's libraries. Each opponent mills 8 cards. You could be kind of doing a plague wind thing.
yeah,
I don't know exactly when we'd want to put creature cards in graveyards on top of their oh, so I could put 3 of your
yeah,
creatures on top of your library and one of my graveyard creature cards on top of my library.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you mill 8 cards, putting those creatures into your graveyard, and then next turn I draw the creature card from my graveyard into my hand. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Probably the main use of this is to like blow away your opponent's creatures, put them on top of library, then build those cards. But if there aren't
Mhm.
4 targets, if there are only 2 targets or 3 targets, let's get my best creature out of the graveyard on top of my library, stack it up.
Yeah. Or if you're playing a white black mill deck and It says put up to 4
Yeah.
targets. So you're just like, I'm gonna pay 8 mana for the blue
Hell yeah.
version. Just because I don't have blue mana,
I like this.
but I'm still could only use this in Commander with a at least an Esper.
Yeah, yeah. Is 8 cards competitive for a 2 mana mill spell? I think
I
so.
mean, we had glimpsed the unthinkable as kind of the gold standard, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah, yeah.
is that's 10 for 2 mana blue black, I want to say. And this
Yeah.
has that like that upgrade ability if you are in the late game to be able to actually function as removal as well. This card would not be high on my list to play, but I could totally see like an audience for whom this card is for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we do have, I think, our first rhyme here, which
Oh,
is make them leave and cleave.
cast for cleave. All right.
Uh-huh. Our next submission is from Peter. It's Giddy Goo. It's 2 and a green for a 5/5 uncommon legendary creature, Goo. When you cast Giddy Goo, any player may pay blue. If no player does and you own a Gus, then all players may draw 2.
All right. When you cast it, any player may pay 2. I think this is more about the rhyme, and this is definitely the most rhyming one we've had so far. I don't know what a guz is,
So,
but
yeah, and this is a goo rather than an ooze, but it is very ooze-like, I would say.
yeah, it's ooze carrying a big drink, it looks like. I don't know.
Mhm. Or just is, like, very much in the foreground. It's hard to tell what,
That's true. He could be like Mr. Fantastic arming, sending us a tankard.
Uh-huh. So it's a 3 mana 5/5 with a I don't know, Ristic probably isn't the right description for the effect, but if an opponent has if any player, including you, any player can pay blue to turn off the next ability. But if
Yeah.
you also control a Gus or a Guz or whatever this
Yeah.
other creature type is, and no player did pay the extra blue, then everybody can draw 2 cards.
Huh.
I think 2 and a green for a 5/5 that makes everyone draw 2, like,
Oh, okay.
that seems like a that feels like a Kamigawa era card in a
Oh,
way,
yeah.
one of these undercosted legends that,
Mm.
that kinda benefits the opponent enough that it offsets that.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is mostly for the rhyme, so digging too deep into this card's functionality is like, because this is like a 3 mana 5/5, unless you control a Gus and, blah, blah, blah. That said, I do kind of like an undercosted big stat creature that, like, benefits everybody early on. We've
Mhm,
seen in, like, Battle Bond or other commander things, like, cards that, like, enter and everybody goes and fetches a land, or everyone goes and scries 2. And those are, like, good for, like, filtering multiplayer games and making sure everyone gets to play. Those, in my experience, have been on small creatures that are kind of irrelevant, so you feel like kind of a sucker for playing them because you spend time casting it and everyone benefits.
mhm.
Here, you spend time casting something, and if everyone draws 2, hey, that makes the game happen, and that maybe makes, like, a limited multiplayer game work better. But you also get to, like, hit someone a couple times, and so you get rewarded for being the Santa Claus.
And, hypothetically, in that sort of multiplayer environment, if somebody does pay the blue mana, and then everyone can like point their fingers at that
Hell
person
yeah.
who's
Hell
ruining
yeah.
the draw two for everyone.
Absolutely.
The card does have one big problem for us, which is it can neither be cast for 8 mana or 2 mana, which is the
Yeah.
we've arrived at the bonus points but forgotten the design challenge.
Yep. And Peter, in open defiance of the design challenge, is submitting a card anyhow.
Mhm,
"I dare you not to read this card," he says. He didn't say that, but he thought. Our next
mhm.
one is from Cord. It's called Cuddles, the Knit Night Night. Knit like, clothing,
Like a weave?
night
Mhm.
like not daytime, and then night like a soldier who fights for a king or whatever. It's 8 mana for an 8/1 legendary artifact creature toy knight. It also has Prototype, which is from Brothers War. That's the mechanic where you can pay us a lower amount of mana, but get a smaller creature. And in this case, it's going to be 1 and a black for a 2/1. So you can pay 8 mana for an 8/1 or 2 mana for a 2/1. And then it has a couple abilities. It has First Strike. It has commanders you control have protection from elders, demons, horrors, and nightmares. And then it has an ability, Nighttime Playmate. You may have 2 commanders if the other one has Daytime Playmate. Actually, that's pretty adorable.
Huh. First strike, either 8/1 or 2/1.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then commanders you control have protection from elders, demons, horrors, and nightmares.
Hmm.
If this is a pop culture reference, I don't think I
Yeah,
know what it's a reference to.
same. It looks like I don't know. The art style is really specific, so it feels like we might be missing something, but I don't know what it is.
Elders, demons, horrors, and nightmares.
Yeah.
A sensible little batch. It wouldn't come up in most average games, but I would guess on average a given commander table will have an elder, a demon, a horror, or a nightmare show up
Yeah.
like once.
Yeah.
And nighttime playmate with daytime playmate, I like
Yeah.
similar to Darkest Companion or things like that, when we can get some of the partner sort of feel, but with some directionality. I mean, I
Yeah.
really like Choose a Background
Yeah. Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah. I think that's the open-endedness that's sort of carrying this for me. The card itself, if this was not commander related, if this was just a vanilla card, this is like a two mana first striker, which has some value. Like that's a card that you can play with. And then the 8 mana mode, I feel like is kind of blank. Like I don't imagine using it that often. Though I guess in commander
Mhm.
that's probably true as well. I'm going to be tempted to cast this for 2 mana early, and then once I've done that, when a commander dies, now the expensive mode is 10 mana to recast. So I'm even more gonna want to cast it for the cheap mode each time.
Exactly, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
unless the other commander is the one that you're casting
Oh,
in
yeah,
the mid game or
yeah,
something, or has
yeah.
some way of like blinking. Oh, you get this
Oh,
other prototype
yeah,
out, and then
yeah,
your
yeah,
daytime playmate comes out and like blinks your cuddles and turning it from a 2/1 into its kind of default or bigger 8/1
yeah.
status maybe.
So when you blink a prototype creature, if it starts small, when it blinks and comes back, it comes back as its natural size, which is like in this case, the 8/1. So blinking this
Mhm.
is quite a good way of getting a big, important creature onto the battlefield. And as a commander, maybe we'd get to see that more than we did in Brothers War, which is mostly like commons and uncommons with prototype.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does night? It's like the
Uh-huh.
exact same sound. Does that count as a rhyme still?
I think so, and this
Okay.
this I would say observes the bonus point in a strict way. So the way I worded it was make some part of your card rhyme with itself, with the implication that you could read that as some part of your card rhymes with some part of your card, but you could read it as some part of your card needs to rhyme with that same part of your card, in which case we have cuddles the knit night night
Hmm.
and night do rhyme.
I'm glad that we have your like powerful aesthetic reservoir to tap into for this because you're able to make judgment calls that I can't even dream of.
We've got another prototype card coming up next,
All
which
right.
is a submission from VT Base Mat. It is month 2. It's 8 generic mana for a rare instant with exile up to 2 target permanents whose total mana value is less than or equal to month two's mana value. And then it has Prototype for black and a green, which I think is a novel thing
Oh, okay.
for a non like a non-permanent prototype card. In this case, the rules text is specifically about the mana value of the card that you are casting, and
Uh,
prototype changes the mana value and color of the card while keeping the abilities.
yeah.
So, 8 generic mana, you can exile up to 2 target permanents whose total mana value is less than or equal to 8. And then for black and a green instead, exile up to 2 target permanents whose total mana value is less than or equal to 2.
Yeah, yeah. You could hit a pair of ones. This feels like kind of modern-y. Like being
Mhm.
able to like really dismantle some sort of artifact board. We've got Mox Opal back in the format, so people are really conscious of being able to zap a lot of little things.
So we did discuss with the submitter a few weeks ago when this was first submitted
Yeah.
that this probably does need non-land because otherwise it's you pay black and a green and you exile 2 target
Hell
lands
yeah. Hell yeah.
your opponent controls, or they're 2-drop and a land, or etc. But if we do assume that this is non-land, then I think, as you say, trying to hit a Mox Opal and a 2-drop, or hey,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get 2 of your tokens.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
that could be an 8/8 little construct token or something, and I'm gonna get it and your thing, or I'm gonna get your Bowmasters and the Bowmaster token.
Oh
Some
yeah.
sort of.
Yeah. That's a real cleanup right there. It's the kind of card that like becomes more powerful the more powerful the format is. Like in draft, I guess you could spend 2 mana to kill a 2-drop. That's like
Mhm.
probably what you're going to do with this card, and then later on, you get to blow up 2 real things for 8 mana. But yeah, in any kind of high powered format, this becomes quite good.
Thinking more about this in modern, if you were in kind of like a Tron sort of environment, or maybe like a
Yeah.
Black Green Eldrazi deck realistically, but
Oh yeah,
you
Tron.
doing the 8 mana version, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to at instant speed remove your Primeval Titan and one of your Amulets of Vigor.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
Huh.
that's still under the 8 to get the 6 and the 1 out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. I like the flavor of month 2. Month 1, you're learning how to like levitate a textbook. And level 2, you are like a giant dragging, like causing a building to collapse. It's
Uh-huh.
an accelerated course. It's a boot camp.
I don't see the rhyme in here.
Hmm. It's going to be like a peak challenge for people sneaking past us with a qualifying card, and then later they get to spring it on us.
You know, that is welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 It's good.
huh, thanks for the submission.
I love it. Next up from Kern, we've got a double face card here. Red Sky Swarming for 6 black red. This is a legendary artifact vehicle at rare. It's a 6/6. It has Daybound. So Daybound, that's going to be the Midnight Hunt mechanic where like it's a werewolf thing where it flips back and forth. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature you control. And when Red Sky Swarming attacks, create a 1/1 black rat creature token for each creature that crewed it this turn. Woo! And then it has crew 4, activate only once each turn. Quick thing there, 8 mana 6/6, but I could probably cast this for less than 8 mana because it costs 1 less for each creature, down to 2. So I can go from 8 down to 2 if I have 6 creatures in play. Because this is
Mhm.
Daybound, it also has a Nightbound side, and that's Red Sky Blight. When Red Sky Blight attacks, sacrifice any number of creatures. Red Sky Blight deals that much damage to any target. It also has Crew 4, but upgraded just a little bit into a 7/7, from a 6/6 to a 7/7.
Yeah. This is harkening with its flavor text the famous phrase, "Red sky at night, sailors delight. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning,"
Hmm.
which is a sort of meteorological forecast,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
based on
yeah.
the outlook.
So the new flavor text is the front side is Sailors Takes Warning, and then the back side is Sailors Take Flight.
Mhm. I wish the night side had, like, flying, like, scary ghost ship,
Oh,
just, like, flying over the
okay,
waves, something like
okay.
that. But, yeah, I do think the swarming warning and blight flight, that is a intent of a rhyme there.
Is swarming and warning, is that the incorrectness that you were talking at the beginning? You sometimes need to break the rhyming rule to really shock people.
So that is what's sometimes called a slant rhyme,
Oh, okay.
which is they're rhymes that depend on the way that you pronounce things, but could be pronounced together to kind of match or that
Yeah.
come close. Part of what makes a slant rhyme work well is if it has the same prosody, if it has the same like beats to it.
Hmm.
So swarming, warning.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas if it was like if one of those was pronounced swarming and the other one was pronounced warning, like
Okay.
they wouldn't match up as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Love it.
I think this card, well, I like the day and night because it is getting us the red sky at morning,
Yeah,
red sky at
yeah.
night sort of idea. I like the front side just on its own, I think. I like the idea
Hmm.
of you want to have a go wide thing, and here's your vehicle that rewards you both for being cheaper if you've
Hmm.
got enough creatures to be discounting it, and if you've got a bunch of one-ones and they all crew this, then you get a bunch of little little one-one little sea rats to help you out as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this feels also quite potent. Like, any downside of crewing, oh, I have to use up all my blockers in order to crew this vehicle. That's all gone. Because if I crew this with a couple pirates or whatever, I then get that many rats back who can also block and also keep me safe.
Mhm,
Yeah, it seems fun. Like black red, I don't normally think of as fully swarmy, but sometimes, we got rats at Eldraine. Maybe goblins or something would have a bunch of tokens.
mhm.
So, as a legendary vehicle, maybe you're saying, hey guys, can I play this vehicle as my commander? Oh, yeah, try it out, try it out. You can build a whole deck around that. So I like that from that angle too. So one on one or multiplayer, pretty satisfying.
Yeah. I think if we wanted to do something in that space, let's put the "This can be your commander" on the back where we have a little bit more
Ah,
tech space.
funny. The other thing I was trying to think of is like, does the discount work if it's nighttime? And I looked this up, and actually it does. There's an existing
Mhm,
werewolf. You could look it up if you want. Wolfkin Outcast. Because this spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a wolf or werewolf. It doesn't have that text on the back of the card, but there is an oracle note for that. It costs 2 less to cast if you control a wolf or werewolf, even if it's currently night. So the discount works whether it's day or night, even though it's only on the front of the card.
that makes sense. Our next submission is from Gabe Lincoln. It's Aegis of Unlife.
Hmm.
It's a sorcery, it's a mythic sorcery for white and a black, and it has Spree, which, of course, the Outlaws of Thunder Junction mechanic that
Hmm.
allows you to choose one or more additional costs. And the first of the, I'm going to do the cost and then the effect.
Hmm.
So, 0 mana, sacrifice a creature with the effect draw 2 cards and you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness.
Hmm.
And then 2 mana, destroy target creature. Its controller loses life equal to its toughness. And then 4 generic mana, return up to 1 target creature card from each player's graveyard to the battlefield under your control.
Hmm. Yeah, a couple things to break down on this, but I think this is actually pretty easy to understand.
Mhm,
So I have to pay for at least one mode. And the first one is like 0 and sack a creature, but that's still a cost. Like I have to have that creature. So I'm paying 2 mana, and then I can pay sack a creature. I could pay 2, I could pay 4. So I could pay 8 mana and sack a creature if I wanted to. I could pay 8 mana, not sack a creature. I could pay 2 mana, sack a creature, 4 mana, just kill a thing. But the modes
mhm.
here are all quite appealing. Like these are all things that I want to do. So however much mana I have, I'm going to get something pretty good out of it. Either draw some cards, destroy a creature, or bring some cards, from the graveyard. Even that 6 mana mode, if I pay 6 mana, return up to one target creature from each player's graveyard to the battlefield under your control, paying 6 mana for that is pretty good. And maybe that's why this is a mythic, because some of the baseline modes are already good, and then you can combine them however you.
Yeah. I think especially the 0 sacrifice a creature and the 4 mana together. So 6 mana and sacrifice a creature, then you get to bring it or another one back, get one from somebody else's graveyard, and draw 2 cards. I think
Mhm.
that's a pretty strong little thing that then you can kick an extra 2 mana if you if you've done
Yeah.
enough times. If you're getting this card advantage, or if you're doing this control game, to then also destroy your opponent's creature and maybe win the game if that creature's toughness is greater than their life total.
Yeah, I wonder if it's intentional or not that like the 4 mana mode or the 6 mana mode, however you want to say that,
Mhm.
returns target creature cards from graveyards, which means you have to pick those
Oh.
targets as part of casting the spell. So this card like feels like it wants to let you sack a creature, destroy a creature, and then bring them both back yourself, but it can't. They can't do that because those creatures aren't dead yet when you announce the spell.
Gotcha. So we'll just have to, you know, cast multiple Aegises of
Yeah,
Unlight.
there you go. I don't know. Maybe that's like intentional to make it a target and not like a choose or something like that.
Mhm.
Maybe that's fine. Maybe they just got to learn because this is a 6 spell. Spend some time learning it.
Yeah. I really appreciate stuff like the if you pay 2 white and a black and just destroy target creature, its controller loses life equal to its toughness.
Yeah.
Those things, or I often think about like Rakdos Charm, which has that
Hmm.
one mode where like each creature deals 1 damage to its controller sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That cards that work for normal purposes, but if your opponent is doing something really broken, so for
Mm.
Aegis of on Life, if my opponent has a like 60 power, 60 toughness creature or something,
Yeah.
if they've done something, or they're like, it's an unbounded combo, so they're like, okay, I have a 999 by 999 creature or
Sure. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I can't do anything. Oh, you're gonna attack? Great. Okay, Aegis of Life, destroy that creature. uh, uh, I think I win the game unless you've
Hell
gained
yeah.
significantly more than that amount of life. I like that sort of way to let kind of broken combo decks exist, because there's
Yeah. Yeah.
also fair cards that can do their own thing and really come into to play at that time.
Yeah. It's a great card. Very easy to play. You
Mhm.
would slot this into a lot of decks and be happy.
Yeah.
Um, so the rhyming, this is we're not talking about like rhyming in terms of thematic like cohesiveness, because this obviously like cares about all the same things. Each mode like cares about the same sort of thing. But we're looking for words that rhyme.
The one I think maybe works for this is sorcery and spree.
Oh, okay. I love this.
I wouldn't necessarily be like, and here's our, most famous card from our rhyming poetry themed set. But like this is enough to fulfill, I
Hmm.
think, each of the it is funny to think about the different costs for the 2 and the 8 involving different colors, because
Hmm.
the 2 involves white and black, and the 8 involves a lot of colorless and white and black, so I don't know about
Hmm.
that bonus there, but I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
think, I do think I'd give it the rhyming work here.
All right. Our next one up from Larson. Larson prefaced this with, I can't stop tweaking for show purposes. I'm aware this is not exactly a stellar card. Feel free to suggest tweaks. All right. All right. We're going to open mind this one. Larson's given us a concept more so than
Uh-huh.
a product. But we're okay with that. We'd love to review every card that gets submitted. Um, and this card is a giant blue card, Damnation's Abomination. It's 5 blue, 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 8 mana for an 8/8 legendary creature, Kraken Horror at rare. You pay X and reveal this card from your hand. Each player mills X cards. And then you may pay black, black to cast this spell if any player has exactly 13 cards left in their library. and then it has trample and ward, mill 13 cards. 8 for 8. I can X to mill, which we already talked about. That's like paying a fair amount for mill. Like we were able to pay 2
Mhm.
mana to mill 8. We have to pay 8 mana to mill 8 here, or 4 mana to mill 4, but it's flexible. At the end of every turn, any leftover mana I have before I untap, I'm gonna, make you mill another 1, make you mill another 2.
You know, there's something that you might be able to do with, like, selective memory, the
Hmm.
card that lets you just exile arbitrary parts of your library at will, or other kind of like Shordock Isle style enablers, but for enabling exactly 13 cards of your library rather than like, hey, have less than 20 or have
Hmm.
exactly 5 or
Yeah.
have 0. 13 on its own is kind of a different thing, so you'd have to be kind of thinking creatively to get to that point. Unlike a Death's Shadow or things like that,
Hmm.
you don't naturally end up at 13 cards in most games. Whether you're at a
Yeah.
40 card
Yeah.
deck or a
Yeah. Yeah.
60 or 100 card deck, that's pretty rare. So you'd have to be working towards it, I think.
Hmm.
But this is 8 mana one way. This is a creatively novel way to get a little alternative casting
Yeah.
cost
Yeah.
in there.
I mean, we haven't seen that, and probably may never see that exact clause on a Magic card again.
Mhm.
Um, this is a funny thing. If I'm thinking like my opponent has 13 cards left in library, it's probably at
Uh-huh.
least like turn 6 or something. And in that case, I would like to keep the card in my hand that mills them. I would not like to cast that card.
Uh-huh.
I guess if I'm dying or something, maybe this is sort of the, safety clause. Like, what's the problem of a mill deck? Well, people just kill you before you mill them. Okay, well, I got close, but they have a big board and they have a giant green creature. Like, it slam my 8/8 down to protect me. And they can't kill it because if they try to target it, they're going to mill their last 13 cards. Maybe that's
Mhm.
what the cast mode is for.
This would be interesting if it was like, "Okay, it's my commander, so I can't use one of its strongest abilities."
Oh, funny.
I
Yeah.
but I'm really geared in this casual commander thing towards getting this. If I can cast my
Hmm.
commander, that counts as a win for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Funny.
Either for 2 mana or for 8.
Yeah.
Either way.
If you don't care about the mill plan and you just want something with like basically I guess it's not nearly hexproof if you don't care about the mill plan. You need to be threatening
Mhm.
your opponent's library for the ward to matter. I was thinking for a second that what if you just wanted 8/8 hexproof? But this isn't quite that.
There's 2 parts of this card that I think would possibly require some, like, additional ruling explanations for the average
Okay.
player. The first of which is, once you've revealed the card from your hand, can you reveal it again? Like,
Hmm.
is that a
Oh
cost that
yeah.
can only be paid once, or is once a card is revealed, is it
Funny.
revealed, like, period?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah. I think that
second
would be
question.
extra sticky on Arena where known cards in hand stay visible in the Arena
Mhm,
interface. So revealing it would, I think, if this were a video game, you could only reveal it once and then it stays revealed. Uh,
mhm.
in paper Magic, we tend to put our hand together and don't leave it. But yeah, you're right. Whether revealing is something you do multiple times, that's a good idea.
And then the other rules question is, ward mill 13 cards. If I
Hmm.
have 10 cards in my library and I target your thing, can
Oh,
I perform the action of milling 13 cards
huh.
and then just like, okay, I milled all of the cards that I could, but I performed the action of putting I did put the top 13 cards of my library into my
Yeah.
graveyard.
Huh.
There happened to be less than 13 there at the time.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
something that again has some weird stuff about how like costs versus like additional actions to perform sort of
Yeah.
work around ward as a particular nuance.
Yeah. Ward, discard a card. You have to have the card in hand to pay the cost of ward, discard a card. So I would
Mhm.
think that, because normally you might say like, "Hey, discard 4 cards. If you have 2 cards in hand, discard them all." And you might think, "Hey, ward mill 13 cards works that same way. Well, I'll just mill whatever I have." But yeah, I
Mhm.
think you need the 13.
This also gets into some of how dredge is particularly worded, which is it says, like, you need to do exactly this number of cards from the top of
Hmm.
your library into you need to mill exactly this number of cards.
Hmm.
Then if you did that number of cards, then perform this action, then complete the dredge. And so, like, do we need that wording for oh, is ward mill exactly 13 cards? Is it like, yeah, magic is weird, and unless you have the word exactly there, like, that is,
Yeah.
again, one of those things that
Yeah, yeah.
we would trust a rules manager to make some templating or like, hey, judges, if you have any questions about this, here's the answer.
Hmm.
So our next card is a submission from Juliet. It's Light Root Rebirth. It's one and a green for a rare instant. And okay. So the card has sacrifice target creature you own, choosing one, where X was that creature's power. Draw a card and gain X life. Create X 1/1 blue and white fungus creature tokens named Flower. So you can choose either of those things based on X
Hmm.
being that creature's power. But it also has Kicker for green and a white, Entwine for white and a blue, and or Flashback for 2 green and a blue. And then if this was kicked, overload it on the stack.
Okay. Let me try to break this down. This seems fun. I get to sacrifice a creature. I can either make a bunch of little flowers, or I can get my card back and gain a little bit of life. I can flash it back, so I can do it a second time for blue and green. I can kick it, and if I kick it, then that's going to happen to all creatures I own. So I'm going to sacrifice all of them, draw cards equal to how many there were, gain life as their total power, or gain X flowers where X is their total power. I can entwine, and entwine just lets me pick both modes. So outside of flashback and kicker, I could, just say, hey, I'm going to sack a creature I own, draw a card, gain 5 life, make 5 flowers. So I paid a couple extra mana and I get the other mode. And then I can spend 8 mana to flash it back and kick it and entwine it. I can spend 8 mana to. Is that the only way I could spend 8 mana?
Yeah.
Flashback,
So
entwine, kick. All right.
there's 3 ways to spend 4 mana. But there's one way to spend 8 mana, which is
Hmm.
to you can however you cast it the first time, which could be just for 1 and a green or
Sure.
for 1 and green kicked, 1 and green entwined, anything. But flashback gets you to the 4, and then if you kick it to overload it and entwine it, so you're choosing both modes on the flashback, then that would be for 2 generic mana, green, green, white, white, blue, blue, in order to sacrifice each creature you own. And then for each one, you would be drawing 1 card and then gaining life equal to that creature's power
Okay.
and creating a number of 1/1s equal to that creature's power.
You kind of like worked it like as hard as you can to add a lot of complexity to make sure every mode actually like basically makes sense. Like any way that you combine the different pieces of this card, there's a reason to do that instead of some other mode. You have to know a bunch of mechanics to do so, but once you do, I think this is a super functional card. This is like a card that really does a lot of stuff that all of which you want to do.
Mercy killing is kind of the the
Oh
random
yeah.
Shadowmoor
Yeah.
rare
Hell yeah.
in question. The green white thing that then can kill something and create that many 1/1 elves. In this
Yeah.
case, it's little funguses.
Yeah. Mercy killing is pretty useful. I play that in Torsten, who's like a big commander that when it dies, you get a bunch of 1/1s. So when you kill it with mercy killing, you get twice that many 1/1s. Works quite
Mhm.
well. Um, yeah, this, like I said, this it doesn't just like have a bunch of modes, old bogey style, where you can technically do something, but why would you want to? This one, you would want to do all these things. if you only get to have one card in your hand and you want to still have a rich experience playing Magic, Light Root Light Root Rebirth might be the way to make sure that you have enough choices in your game of Magic.
The So we've got
Uh
2
oh.
rhyme pairs here, which is
Oh.
Kicker, Entwine, Flashback. Kicker for mana, Entwine mana, Flashback. If this was kicked, overload it on the stack pair. And then the second rhyming pair is sacrifice target creature you own, choosing one where X was that creature's power, draw a card and gain X life, or create X/1/1 blue and white fungus creature tokens named Flower.
Oh, okay. That's why it's called Flower. All right. All right.
Mhm. This was
I like
also
it.
I was looking through like fun nature photography. And I was like, ooh, this
Oh,
is
is this a
fun.
photo?
What?
Oh.
Yeah, I the last year or more, honestly, but the last year or so, I've really gotten into using weird nature photography
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
card arts because it's just a fun, different sort of challenge. The other
Something
thing
about the
here,
tree made me assume this was like the Night Elf starting zone for World of Warcraft or something, like
sure,
the
right?
glowing
It
in the
it has
tree.
that
Yeah.
feel.
It's a great card. You have to cast this card about 8 times before you're qualified to like do so under duress. Um,
And maybe that's a little bit too like modern brained to
eh,
be like, and here's a card that has like niche value, but is like really spiky to play in its own
yeah.
way.
Were charms too simple for you? Let's play some Light with Rebirth. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, our next card is from Ash, and it's called Dramoka Kin Tree Guardian. It's 5 white, black, green, 8 mana in Abzan. We're going back to Tarkir for a 6/6. 8 mana 6/6. Legendary enchantment creature, Spirit Dragon. It has Impending 6 for a hybrid green white and a black mana. So 2 mana Impending style. Impending was that Duskborn mechanic where it doesn't enter as a
Mhm.
creature, it just enters as an enchantment with a bunch of counters on it. And once a turn, those tick down. And then once they all tick down, it becomes a creature again. So you can pay 8 mana to get the full creature, pay 2 mana to get the effect of this card, but only you don't get the creature for another 6 turns. And these have been super popular. So I'm excited to see another Impending card. It has Flying, Lifelink, and Trample. Beastly. Creatures you control have Ward 1, so that's going to apply even when it's impending, but not to itself when it's impending because it's not a creature yet. And then whenever Dramoka Kintree Guardian enters or attacks, bolster X, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard.
Mm.
Oh. Bolster, choose a creature with least toughness among creatures you control and put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So bolster X, let's say I have 4 creatures in my graveyard. I choose one of my smallest creatures. It has to be one of my smallest creatures and give it 4 counters, which is probably getting me my 2 minutes worth as long as I have any sort of creature out and I'm doing any sort of graveyard stuff. This enters as an enchantment. It gives away a couple counters. It ticks for a bunch of turns and then later gets to attack again and bolster some more, attack, bolster more, attack, bolster some more.
Mhm. Who knows what all of Tarkir Dragonstorm will show
Yeah.
us, but
Mhm.
since we've seen Behold, I think we've got an idea of kind of how dragons will have an impact on the board before they
Oh,
are on the board.
yeah.
But since Impending was first revealed in Duskmorn, I've always thought, oh, this is the right way to do a Tarkir dragon mechanic,
Oh,
where
okay.
the dragons are like go you can literally imagine them like swooping around or like soaring
Yeah.
around overhead until they finally like land and impact the
Hmm.
battlefield. And that way
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
have, like the Silumgar Scorn style cards where it's like
yeah.
if you control a dragon creature or reveal a dragon creature from your hand and just be like, no, we will have these impending things that we make sure that we can somehow still call them dragons. Like cards can still look at them and point say that is a dragon, even though it's impending. You can figure out something for that.
Hmm.
But that way we can spend 1 or 2 mana to get this dragon, and it's like it is a looming presence even if it isn't here yet. We get like some time countery stuff, which I always think is
Yeah.
something that could really be explored for Tarkir, and this idea of, okay, it's Dromoka, but it's Dromoka and the kin trees that we're bringing this Abzan together. I don't know. There's a lot of this that seems like exactly what I would want from a Dromoka on the Abzan side card.
Yeah, this feels pretty Dramoka-y. Bolster's like a funny mechanic because it's I don't know, often a little underwhelming, but when you can dial the number all the way up, any mechanic becomes fun, right? When I could bolster
Hmm.
for 4, bolster for 8 or whatever, because I got a full graveyard. Now it becomes exciting again and worthy of my cool legendary mythic. We've seen the impending cards kind of play out, and I think the most famous one is the black one, which is impending for 5 turns for 2 mana. When it enters or attacks, mill 4, then return a non-avatar creature card or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. So get a card back from your graveyard. I think in
Hmm.
modern in place and commander in places like that, one of the things we've started to see is that when you get just enough juice on an impending card, the impending number stops mattering. Like
Hmm.
whether it's impending 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, those are all exactly the same because what you're going to do is blink it. Um,
Sure.
and like there's Philia in modern, this is something that, you play Overlord to get some value, but then like you just blink this thing right away and then it comes back, at full size. And if it's accruing value each time you do that, like that's like a hard thing to beat, like or a powerful strategy to use, I guess, said from the other point of view.
Hmm.
I, if there's a limitation of impending to me, it's that like impending 6 is so far off that it's just impending infinite, and then we're just assuming you're going to blink it.
Sure.
And I think that's sort of how Dramoka feels, because Dramoka is like even better as a creature than the Overlords are because it has flying and lifelink. So
Hmm.
I am extra planning to blink this thing, and extra don't care about impending 3 versus impending 6.
I think that makes sense. I think that is a design hiccup to the I don't know how you design around it, but I do think that makes sense. It makes me think of the red Achroma
Hmm.
from Time Spiral block. It had morph, and one of the dominant things to do at the time was you play this for 3 generic mana, and then you just use any of the various momentary blink sort of
Yeah.
cards to turn it into a full big battle angel. This bolster X, even though it's not the exact same thing, makes me think about a old card
Yeah.
from Judgment. It's a
Okay.
rare zombie named Sutured Ghoul
Oh.
that it was a 7 mana, like 4 black trampling zombie where when it enters, you exile creature cards from your graveyard and it just like puts their power and toughness together. And like, hey,
Hmm.
this is your big sutured zombie thing from back when we did a lot of zombie typal and graveyard stuff in the Odyssey Onslaught era. But this idea of getting to, I mean, the idea of the Amazon and the kin tree stuff I think is easy to forget because it's not the spiciest thing to have remembered from Tarkir, but the Abzan, one reason they had those big like fortresses that they took around everywhere is because they literally were growing their kin trees, and the kin trees being like outlawed under
Hmm.
Dramoka was like a big reason why the Dramoka aren't, despite being like white green and everything, aren't like the Abzan. They aren't,
Hmm.
strongly humanist because they don't have these like ancestor ties in the same way. And so getting this black mana into Dramoka, getting this, looking at the creature cards in your graveyard, looking at this like form of ancestor worship, I
Hmm.
think like this really works in like a flavor syntactic
Okay.
sort of sense for
Okay.
me.
New Kintry Roos tasted her blood. New families grow under her wings. So Dramoka maybe didn't want to become black, but died. Some things happened, spiritually or whatever. And now
Mhm.
Dramoka comes back with the extra color added back in.
Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe in this version of things, like Ugin had a talking to each of the elder dragons. It was
Oh.
like, hey, what if you make the cons of Tarkir wedges re-arise under your rule. That would be good for Tarkir's marketability plane. Were there any rhymes here?
Oh. Ward, yard? No.
Ward and yard, I think, are different.
That's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about the opposite. Like they don't actually sound the same. So even though they're the same letters. All
Mhm.
right.
Our next submission is from Xena, Distraction Incarnate. It's a few of my favorite things.
All right. All right.
For one in a white, it's a rare legendary enchantment. There's another one that has Cleave.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the Cleave is 6 white and a white. So you could, as with
Uh,
many of the things for this challenge, for one in a white, that's, mana value 2, or for 6 white white, so for 8 total. This is going to be the whole card. When you cast spells with exactly 3 targets, and when you remove permanents on the banned list, and when your 4th white creature of this turn enters, you alone get an experience counter. And then starting main 2, if it's your turn 2 and you haven't attacked, you may exile this permanent and put your commander on the stack. So the
what
first
the
set of things that
hell?
end with experience counter are all in the
Yeah.
brackets.
Okay.
But when you cleave this, you remove that and just have the starting main 2 sort of thing. So this is, of course, in reference to the Sound of Music song, A Few of My Favorite Things. The snowflakes that stay on my nose and
Yeah.
eyelashes, brown paper packages tied up with strings. When the dog bites, when the bee stings, when I'm feeling sad. I don't necessarily follow the 3 targets band list.
When you cast spells with exactly. No, it doesn't quite line up.
When you cast spells with 3 targets, when you remove permanents on the banned list, when
Yeah.
your 4th white creature of this turn enters, I simply remember my favorite things and then I don't feel so sad. Huh.
So the whole bracketed stuff. Why do I want to get rid of that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I think that might be a part of the design challenge submission, but not necessarily a. Yeah, I don't get it.
Okay. So because the bracketed part that I have to pay extra to remove is just a very like a super complicated way to get an experience counter. So I don't know that there's any reason to remove it. Like why it seems like I would just want that all the time.
Mhm,
And then the other text starting main 2, so second main on your turn. If you didn't attack, you can exile this permanent, put your commander on the stack.
mhm.
Wow, so we're also like giga cheating our commander. All right.
So if it's your second main phase, if it's the second main phase and it's on your turn, so if it's
Yeah.
your second main phase and you haven't attacked, you can exile this to put your commander on the stack. Which I could see that ability showing up somewhere, but I don't know
Hmm.
that I would
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
on a 2 mana card.
Because it's just like I cast this first main for 2 mana, and then second main, I can exile this to free cast my commander.
Mhm,
There is room for that clause though. Like, hey, if you don't attack, here is something that is cool. Like, I think that feels very white. That's something that I am interested in trying to do. Oh, this deck is like aggressive in some way, but if I take one turn off in the middle of this assault, I get to get a cool thing. That does have potential.
do you think of the most powerful commander to just get to
Ooh.
cast on turn 2? 'Cause, like, I don't think, like, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn work. I mean, it depends on what you call, like, by putting something on the stack.
Hmm. I guess if it's commander, it's got to have color identity too. So we gotta look at
Oh,
white
right,
cards
uh-huh.
to flop out. One of the big dinosaurs, get a free dinosaur.
We can get, like, Progenitus, I guess, would be, maybe you do
Yeah.
something with like shroom, some sort of like shroom combo to get, even if it's only 6 mana that you're
Hmm.
cheating onto the battlefield, that's still gonna
Well,
potentially start some sort of combo.
there's some other kind of nutty things about this card. It's kind of mind blowing because I feel like we're missing something about the rhyme or something. But there's a lot of
Uh-huh.
other details. One of which is the like set icon, which is like the Julie Andrews like arms out, wearing a dress, like a tiny little dancer as the set icon,
Uh-huh.
which seems to be custom for this card. And then the background, it's like a photo from the movie. But then the background, you can also see like Minthara and Kelsian and Daxos, like experienced counters in white, like experienced commanders in white, who have been photoshopped in the background with the children. Um, so this is like the
There's a lot
one
of
of the
work in the card.
yeah that's one of the things I want to express about this card is that like we're clearly not getting something about it, but that is not because there was not enough effort put into the card. The effort was clearly extremely high on this card, and I want to make sure to shout that out because it I don't know it makes me laugh for sure.
I'm also trying to think of like, okay, how many spells do I know with exactly 3 targets? Uh, you could do like strive sort of things
Oh,
potentially,
okay.
or
Yeah.
do any of the up to. Uh, when you remove permanents on the banned list, is this exile like permanents that are also
Hmm.
on which banned list? Because if they're on the banned list, why are they in?
Yeah.
Like, why are they on the battlefield if they're on the
Yeah.
banned list?
Yeah. That's what
Uh,
makes me feel like there's some, like a specific three target card and a specific ban list removing thing and a specific white thing that would rhyme. And I just have no clue what they are.
oh yeah, yeah. These are references to 3 things that then those card names rhyme. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you have stumped
We'll have
us.
to just find out later, I guess, after the episode drops.
Or maybe these are just like Xena really enjoys in Commander or in just in play. I really love targeting 3 things. I really love exiling unfair cards, and I really love playing 4 creatures in one turn. It's like, yeah, if that's everyone has their own
Yeah. Yeah.
thing they
Yeah.
enjoy.
Alrighty. Well, I gotta catch my breath and then I'll start reading the next card here, which is from Silly Philly, and this is called Peak Innervation. Innervation is like sapping something's energy, is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
It doesn't have a mana cost, so you know we're gonna do some crazy stuff. It has a red green color indicator, it's a sorcery at rare, and then it has a cleave cost. You may cast this spell for its cleave cost. If you do, remove the words in square brackets. This is our third cleave card. I'll read the whole thing and then the bracket thing. Untap all lands, and then brackets, and all creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. For 2 mana, I know that I can at least untap all lands. In order to get that other effect to not cleave away that text, I'm going to have to pay Awaken 10 for red, red, green, green. If you cast this spell for its Awaken cost, also put 10 +1/+1 counters on target land you control, and it becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. So if I pay just the cleave mode, I just untap all my lands. If I pay the awaken mode, I pick one of my lands, I put 10 counters on it, then I untap all lands, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like pay red green, untap all lands does seem like a pretty strong potential. Like depending on the format, depending on the thing, this is a combo access opportunity. It does untap your opponent's lands, so that does also
Oh,
allow them to engage in sort of things. Or I don't know, you're playing two-headed giant, and your opponent taps all their lands, and you're like, okay, I'm going to untap your
yeah.
lands, and you can storm off a little bit better, maybe, or something.
I was trying to think. I feel like I must have seen this like untap all lands effect before,
Hmm.
but I don't actually see it in play very often. I guess the one that I have seen occasionally is Early Harvest, which is an
Sure.
old card, 3 mana. Target player untaps all basic lands they control. Um, Nature's Will, whatever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player. tap all lands they control, then untap all your lands. But that's like 4 mana to set up. And I'm trying to think
Mhm.
of like other cases where you just untap all your lands on your
Yeah.
turn and just keep using them. And there aren't many.
Okay, off the top of my head, Bear Umbra was one of those.
Mm.
The, like, when this deals damage,
Oh yeah,
untap
yeah.
everything,
Yep,
and
you're right.
then sort of Feast and Famine, I remember being, like, an
Mm.
actual big deal that's a,
Yeah,
sort of fire and ice sort of thing, protection black and
yeah.
green with the +2,
The black
+2,
and green one.
and when it when a creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and you untap all lands you control, which doesn't sound that wild, except this was used in permission decks as a way to say, like, I will always be able to counter anything
Hmm.
that you I will always have mana up
Yeah.
to do that sort of countering.
Yeah. Sort of Feast and Famine. That's a good pull because that's like a kind of classic, like the whole game has to like go on high alert when someone plays their Sort of Feast and Famine because it's like doubling their mana basically. Uh,
Mhm. What's the, it's not Escape to the Wilds, it's the other one.
Wilderness Reclamation, the enchantment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, some overlap there
Yeah. Yeah.
with Wilderness Reclamation at the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control, which is you can do the thing where you tap all of them and then untap them and then tap them again to cast
If you have
some
multiples,
big
yeah, yeah.
expel instance and things like that.
Yeah. We haven't talked about one that just lets you kind of ritual.
Mhm,
The early harvest is the closest one. Those all have to be basics and it's 1 extra mana. So this peak innervation, the cleave mode actually feels like if this were printed would be a breakthrough card that would be famous.
mhm. And also, occasionally, you'd be, like, cascading into this,
Oh,
hypothetically.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, you could do other ways to like cheat this because it has this weird non-mana cost, which is good with like
Mhm,
cascading. And then the awaken mode is cool. Like this is like a fun gruel thing to do. Awaken 10, make a big creature, untap it, get to attack with it. So you play that after your first attack to get like a whole nother big attack, and your opponents are, you know, really in trouble at that point. Yeah, it feels like the cleave mode is the crazy part. But this is a cool card. If someone deployed this, it would be very exciting.
mhm.
Yeah.
The more I'm thinking about it, the more the cascade or discover into this, but especially thinking like, okay, if I Violent Outburst is banned. If I Shardless Agent or Bloodbraid Elf or even like Demonic Dread or something into this, then I'm casting it for the full phrase just in case. So
Hmm.
I'm untapping all my lands and creatures. I'm getting an extra combat phase and additional main phase so that I can like do more cascading potentially. Like I can do
Mm.
Cascade Storm stuff, but I can also get an extra combat phase. And so you just
Oh, funny.
keep doing since the cleave kind of is on that one part of the component
Yeah,
thing.
if you cascade into this, you don't get the awaken 10, but you do get untap all your creatures and get extra combat. That's funny.
Mhm. It has the 2 and the 8, even if it's the same colors for both.
Yep, yep.
Does it have I mean, phase, innervation, and awaken? Okay. That innervation and awaken, that does end with a similar rhyme.
Oh, innervate means to supply an organ with nerves.
Oh,
Never
well,
heard that
you learn
used that
something new
way.
every day.
Wow, we found a word that Juliet didn't know. A breakthrough.
There's like a mid-level D&D necromancy spell that's like
Yeah,
Innervating Ray or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Our next submission is from Auxiliary Otter. It's Deathbed Spearhead. It's
Hmm.
8 mana, so it's 6 generic and then black red hybrids for an 8/8 rare creature elemental, which also has evoke for a black mana and a red mana, so that's gold rather than the hybrid of the 8 mana cost.
Mhm.
And then when this creature dies, manifest dread. Whenever you attack, this creature deals 4 damage to any target. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. You may cast this card from your graveyard as long as you control an undead. If you do, this
Mm.
creature enters with a finality counter on it. Zombies, skeletons, and vampires are undead.
Hmm. So this isn't undead. This is an elemental, but it has this sort of gravecrawler thing.
Mhm.
Can you cast for its evoke cost from this way?
Maybe?
Probably, right?
So let's assume you evoke it the first time for black and red.
Hmm.
This comes onto the battlefield, doesn't have a chance to attack. You're paying black and a red to put this in your graveyard and manifest dread.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're also getting a little bit of card filtering that way, like manifest dread often does.
Yeah.
And then you've got this in your graveyard. You flip or put out somehow a zombie, skeleton, or vampire, and then you can either manifest dread again just by evoking, or if you can't evoke, then this is an 8 mana like late game graveyard thing that you can bring back. I mean, it's an 8/8 that removes any target, that deals 4 damage to any target when it attacks, and when it dies, at least gives you a 2/2 back. That's not nothing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe this is in the same zone as the treasure token thing from earlier. Is getting a 2/2 instead of my 8/8 kind of sad? Yeah, but I get to bring it back later, and that part rules. It's funny to have this kind of like super junior mode that is like so much smaller than the main card.
Mhm. I get to play an 8 mana card in my deck that otherwise
Hmm.
I might just not get to play the 8 mana card at all, is I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
another way of thinking about it.
I mean, the evoke mode on this seems quite solid. Here's a way to get a couple more 8/8s into limited decks without just like blowing up the curve.
How do you feel about this batch for the undead? We got zombies,
Ooh,
skeletons, and vampires are undead.
yeah. The undead batch is tough because it's like all the ghostly undead are now don't count.
Oh, spirits. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good point.
specter, whatever you want to say. Yeah, undead is a batch. Yeah, sure, why not? Um, I guess the skeleton fans are excited to be included in the party for once.
And we're in the, scary elemental black-red hybrid space. I'm thinking a lot about the elementals and elemental skeletons of Shadowmoor, the
Oh, okay.
cinders and
Oh yeah,
everything from
yes.
there.
Yeah.
I think cinder bones, we could get some elementals that are already undead, so you could play an elementals deck and still have the undead in order to recur this.
Oh, Cinderbones, elemental skeleton. What a pull!
Mhm.
Is Cinderbones like a fully burnt out elemental? I forget what they're
Yeah,
called.
so if you remember the Flamekin
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Lorwyn Morningtide sort of thing, the cinders then are the the flame is dying out or smoking out on Shadowmoor, especially they're the kind of
yeah,
black red hybrid group of stuff. So we get Cinder Haze Wretch, Crowd of Cinders, Manaforge
yeah.
Cinder,
These are cool looking creatures too.
and then Cinder Bones. Not all coals lie quietly in their beds of cold ash. So you just
Hmm.
got this weird little smoking little
Yeah, yeah.
cinder guy.
Yeah, he's a little goofball. He's a little more burned out than the other ones. The other ones are like cool, fire,
Hmm.
scary creatures, and the Cinderbones is just like, ah, I'm out of juice.
I am so curious what Laura and
Ooh,
Shadowmoor will be
yeah,
like in
yeah, yeah,
2026 or 27 or whenever it gets delayed to, whenever we get it.
yeah. It should be cool.
So we have quite a few rhymes here that are all following the same
Oh,
thing, which is Deathbed Spearhead, Manifest
mm,
Dread, Exile it instead, Control
mm.
and Undead. Vampires
Oh,
are undead. Mhm,
hell yeah! I wasn't even doing the rhyme check, but this
mhm.
is one of our most loaded rhymes.
Yeah.
Ed, everywhere.
Sadly, Evoke doesn't have, secretly if you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield instead.
Instead, it enters the battlefield dead.
Yeah. What's our next submission?
Next up from Alex, we've got another two-sider. This one is called Your Inheritance. One in a blue for an enchantment at Mythic. And the only ability on this friend side here is to pay another 2 in a blue, return target non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. Create a treasure token. Then if you control 8 or more treasure tokens, you may return your inheritance to your hand. It has a backside, though, called Your Possession. And that's 6 blue blue, 8 mana for an enchantment. When your possession enters, gain control of target permanent. Huh.
You would be spending 24-ish mana if you're spending 3 mana eight times and not spending any of the treasures along the way, unless you're creating treasures. Because it's an enchantment and it stays on the battlefield, right? So you're
Oh, I thought I had to
Mhm.
sack this thing. Yeah, I don't know why. I couldn't parse this card.
I think this front side is pretty strong, or at least something that we would want to test to make sure it doesn't make games unfun. Because
Yeah.
if I'm playing a kind of fair deck and you're playing your inheritance,
This is capsize, right?
yeah, yeah, and like I'm gonna keep just like running my stuff onto the battlefield, and you can keep bouncing it and gaining the treasure to make sure that you're never gonna be like shields down
Oh,
about
man.
this, or so
Yeah.
that you can still
Huh.
add things to the board while being able to keep activating this, keep being able to keep devoting the mana for it.
Capsize is an old buyback card. You can spend 3 mana to return target permanent to its owner's hand and spend another 3 mana to buy it back, so you get it back in your hand. So 6 mana to keep bouncing things, and that was like kind of a famously oppressive card back in the day. It could bounce lands, so that's part of why it was so gnarly. Whereas your
Mhm.
inheritance can't. But the ability, yeah, to keep the board clean once you pass like turn 7 or 8, your opponent no longer gets to have creatures with this card in play.
I think this card is stronger than Capsize.
I think that's totally possible, yeah.
And then there's also the backside that you can do in case your opponent has something really juicy and you're like, actually, I don't want to,
Yeah,
I've got your inheritance on the battlefield. I'm going to either return it or I just already have a second one in my hand. And I'm
yeah.
going to hold the redundant one for because it is an MDFC, and then
Hmm.
cast the 8 mana version to grab something to end the game with.
Yeah, how do I oh, I can't beat their special land with my infinite bouncing. What do I do? Oh, I have a backside insurance policy where I can steal their land. That's stopping.
Honestly, yeah, I think lands. I'm thinking some of the weirder lands from Innistrad block that have like gold activation
Hmm.
costs. Maybe
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some combination of those things that if the Year Inheritance deck becomes too overpowering, you're like, okay, I'm gonna just have my lands churn out tokens, and if I can make at least 3 tokens each turn cycle, I can slowly churn through just the Year Inheritance part, much less any other removal spells they would have.
Yeah, yeah. We got a Bible quote for this one too. I guess
Mhm.
if we're getting biblical. Psalm 2:8. Ask me and I will make the nations your inheritance and the ends of the earth your possession. Well, that's kind of what this card does.
Uh-huh.
It makes the nations your inheritance for sure. Yeah. Yahweh is coming down to like really give you exactly what you need today.
Yeah. Okay. Are there rhymes that aren't just the word hand?
Token
Token, inheritance,
inheritance.
possession.
Doesn't seem like it.
This hits the bane, even if
Yeah,
it
yeah.
isn't trying to get the bonuses.
Hmm, hmm.
And I think this card could cost 6 mana on the front,
Hmm.
and like that's where I would probably start it for testing, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so that keeps it from just fully locking out an opponent by turn 6 or 7 or something.
I mean,
Uh,
I genuinely think this is going to, in a lot of games, start locking the opponent out on turn 3.
yeah, yeah. I believe it could be even more powerful than what I'm saying, but
Mhm.
I'm saying like
Oh, sure,
as a
sure.
hard line, Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that
I
makes
think we're
sense.
in agreement.
Our next submission is from Red Bay, from Brad here. It is The Downfall of Jukai.
Oh
It's
no.
blue and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature, human ninja. It's a mythic. It has ninjutsu, 5 blue, black, red. So that's 8 mana with a Grixis sort of color. And then the downfall of Jukai can't be blocked by samurai.
Hmm.
When the downfall of Jukai enters, if it's attacking, create 7 2/2
Oh,
blue and black ninja creature tokens that are tapped and attacking.
whoa. So I can just attack with this normally. I could just play this for 2 mana. Attack can't be blocked by samurai, but it's just a 2/2. That's all it does. But if I ninjutsu this in for kind of bolusy 8
Hmm.
mana, I get to also get 7 of my closest ninja friends to also attack. So unusual clause when it enters if it's attacking. I don't know that we see that too often.
Obviously, the main idea is that you would ninjutsu this in for the 8 mana to get the 8 2/2s
Yeah.
attacking total. But I also like to think of like, okay, I'm going to play this with, what is it, arcane adaptation or conspiracy, one of those things that
Oh.
can give everything a creature type and be like, okay, I'm gonna make the downfall of Jukai also a soldier and use that
Mm.
like tuna white Kithkin that attacks in and like you can bring in a
Mm.
soldier tapped and attacking. There's already expensive soldier cards that you can use with that card, but like that's my first thought here is what are ways we can start cheating this in very early.
Yeah, I think like Satoru is also kind of like this.
Okay.
Your
Hmm.
creature cards in your hand have ninjutsu 1 blue black. I mean, Satoru could also cheat out like Blight Steel or whatever, but the downfall of Jukai is a great thing to cheat in with Satoru.
Yeah, and this, of course, is Satoru Umezawa, not the possibly slightly more known Satoru the
Oh,
Infiltrator,
yeah, you're
the Outlaws of Thunder Junction one. I think Satoru Umezawa is a great fit for this because it keeps you on kind of the ninja brand
yeah.
and makes sense if you have a bunch of these, you know, hey, I'm gonna play one for a 2/2, and then I have another downfall of Jukai in my hand that I can then Satoru, and then for 4 mana get this onto the battlefield. At the end of the day, I think if I'm attacking with 8 2/2s, that is gonna end some games, but there
Yeah.
are board states that can answer that at 4 mana. That's not impossible to deal with. Unless I'm attacking you and all your creatures are samurai, in which case, well, you're out of luck. Okay. Any rhymes here? We got the
Oh, yeah,
colors, we
rhyme check.
got attacking and attacking. Oh, yeah, Downfall of Jukai, blocked by samurai.
Ah,
There it is.
I really am relieved to have you on this pod because I just don't have the brain for it, I guess, or the training maybe. Maybe I could be someday if I work hard.
Yeah.
The second to last is from Ignited Soul, and it's called We Have Only Begun, which is a sick name for a card, and it has a sick mana cost, 6 blue blue, 8 mana for a sorcery at Mythic. And it has a new keyword here, pitch. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of cards from your hand. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. And then the actual text of the card is take an extra turn after this one and exile We Have Only Begun. So 8 mana
Mm,
take an extra turn, or discard 3 cards, 2 mana, take an extra turn, or some mixture in between.
yeah.
Speaking of Kamigawa, in the new Kamigawa, we had the March of cycle. Like,
Mhm,
I think the famous one is March of Otherworldly Light, which is
mhm.
as additional cost to cast, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand, and this costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. This pitch mechanic seems either inspired by or it seems like it's attempting to line up with that. With pitch, you don't have to exile the same color as the spell. With both the March cards, you have to exile a bunch of white cards. Um, so this is saying like, hey, exile anything. You have extra lands, that's fine. That'll help you discount. Um,
I, the March cards were then kind of a calling back to the shoal cards, I think, from
Yeah, yeah.
original Kamigawa and Nourishing Shoal and all that sort of thing. So I'm glad we have the exile. I think at the end of the day, let's just put that on most extra turn cards that
Sure, yeah.
we're printing. Let's not try to get too fancy and say, oh, but shuffle this and put it at the bottom of your library or something. Let's just exile 8 mana. I mean, if you're paying for this at its full rate, that's a that's a doozy of a cost for an extra turn.
Yeah, probably 6 mana. I don't know, have we had the vanilla extra turn card in the last like a new extra turn card? So, I'm not sure what the exact cost is, but 6 feels like what they cost it.
Yeah. And then thinking about I only need to pitch 3 cards for this to be a time walk.
Yeah, yeah.
If I'm, for instance, snapcastering this,
Hmm.
I could pitch as well. Of course,
Hmm.
we couldn't snapcaster this if we're casting it normally because it does exile itself, but thinking in that sort of pitch space, thinking about, hey, how much could we do this in a world where we kind of know that we shouldn't be putting delve
Hmm.
or things like that on most cards. Huh. Pitch is like right on the line. I would say it definitely feels very spiky as a mechanic. It definitely accomplishes the 2 and 8 sort of
Yeah.
question though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is
I
we've
wonder.
seen a lot of pretty wordy cards that take a while to break down, and I feel like this
Mhm,
card has hit a pretty good sweet spot of being quite straightforward, but also
mhm.
very powerful, but also maybe not like unhinged level powerful, not like, just immediately busted. So
Yeah.
this has kept it simple, but also kept it, I guess, provocative.
I wonder whether you would then potentially see if this was a keyword, would we
Yeah.
see blue pitch or pitch blue or something like that?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, here's a removal spell with pitch black. That as you
All
pitch the
right, there
things,
we
it
go. The innovation is here.
uh-huh. And then we do have a rhyme here of take an extra turn after this one. Exile, we have only begun.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
Exiling 3 cards is a steep cost. Like, if the card didn't have the expensive mode and the only way to cast this was 2 mana, exile 3 cards from your hand, take an extra turn, I don't know that the alarms would go off. I don't know that that's necessarily by itself.
Maybe. I mean, I still think like, okay, what
You're still a
weird
believer. Okay, okay.
what weird boggles or Cheerios or, any number of things that get us to, hey, if I just get one extra turn,
Hmm.
I'm not even having 2 lands, I'm, using eggs or something to get
Okay,
just enough for 2 mana, and then I
okay.
don't care if I'm exiling a bunch of things or in the middle of a Grizzlebrand sort of combo, you know,
Yeah, I guess Grizzlebrand, sure, yeah.
mhm, a Grizzlebrand or
There
similar
you
things. I would be wary, but I don't know that this is going to make a new problem that didn't already somewhere exist, but it could
Hmm.
tick, some sort of non-interactive, like a Boggles sort of
Yeah, yeah.
hexproof sort of aggro thing
Hmm.
over the mark.
Yeah,
Maybe,
maybe
maybe.
you're right. Yeah, yeah. I could believe I'm wrong here.
But I you could also be right, and it could just be similar to I say Stitch in Time, the 3 mana time lock where you have to flip a coin,
Hmm.
where it's just like, this is for casual use."
Yeah. I was thinking we had that whole, extra turn episode, and in there we were saying, "Please give us conditional extra turn cards. Like, make us
Mhm,
work kind of hard, but in a satisfying way. Like, give us something cool to do."
mhm.
And I think that this hits that for me. This is not just a regular extra turn card. I clearly have to do something extra, but what extra at what cost? Yeah, let's figure it out.
But we've got our last submission here from James Dalton Bell. It's Lure of the Sailors. For 6 blue and a blue, it's an uncommon sorcery with create a 2/2 blue siren creature token with prowess for each island you control.
Ooh.
And then it has cycling for 1 and a white. And when you cycle Lure of Sailors, create a 1/1 white human creature token.
Huh. The cycle mode's kind of fun. That's like our little pup from Kamigawa, where it's just like a 1/1 that draws a card. That feels like a pretty, compared to our like discard to get a treasure, or some of our other alt modes. It's like a pretty
Mhm,
reliable thing to do. Just like get a little guy, draw a card, and it has this kind of clash where I have some white mana to cycle it, but the main card also wants me to have a bunch of islands.
mhm,
Though I guess if I have like 3 planes and 5 islands, I get 5/2/2 prowesses. Like maybe I don't need more than that. Maybe 5 is enough. Um,
mhm. I like this quite a lot
yeah.
from obviously, this is connecting to, Odysseus and, like, the Odyssey and trying to be the one human who hears the the
Mm.
siren song and everything, right? And so this card can represent either the one person who gets to, he's
Yeah.
tied to the mast, right?
Yeah,
So that he
yeah, yeah.
can't be drawn over. And so this is the one person and you're drawing the card because it's like the one person who has that experience is living with it as we move on, or we're sticking with the sirens and who cares about the human? Who cares about the experience? We have a whole horde of sirens to take over this.
Yeah, the extra prowess on there makes this feel like, yeah, if I only get 4 or 5 sirens, I'm probably still okay because I can pump those up next turn.
This has a musical feel to the card,
Hmm.
though I don't see a rhyme directly, but it does have the different color for the 8 and the 2.
James always comes in with these like really tuned, super solid cards, and then we're like, "Yep, card's great. We're done."
So, what is your do you have a favorite card from among the
Hmm.
bunch? We have so many submissions this week
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
this month. We'll have to release a
Hmm.
20-minute cut of the episode and an 80-minute cut of the
Oh, hell
episode.
yeah. What the 20-minute cut of these challenge things? Just like card name,
We
1 sentence,
uh-huh.
card name, 1 sentence. All right.
It's literally just we read the card aloud and then move on with no commentary.
The read cut. Okay. All right.
I mean, that would take 20 minutes with 17 cards and
Probably pretty close to that, yeah. Um, let's see. I mean, I wanna find one that has at least a little bit of rhyming for one of mine. I think the Lure of Sailors, if it rhymed, like, this would be on top for me because it's just so
yeah.
solid. I guess the Deathbed
I
Spearhead had the most satisfying rhyming to me, personally.
mhm. The returning to bed, head, dread, instead, undead.
Yeah, yeah. But, yeah, I think Lure of Sailors might be my pick. Um,
I'm interested in the Jamocha Kintree Guardian because I think it's getting at some
oh, okay. Yeah, you were pretty positive on
really interesting ideas. I agree that the, like, impending and flicker question is gonna be a question, but, in Rise of
yeah.
Eldrazi, we didn't really have bounce spells, like, that's a
Mm, sure.
maybe while we've got the dragons, we hold back on the ephemerates and the
Okay.
Felias and things like that, or find some other way to, like, balance the fairness a little bit to give it, the more fun of having this big dragon swooping in.
I guess most rhyming goes to Giddy Goo, who rhymed
Sure.
that.
But Giddy Goo also did like, if Giddy Goo in any way fulfilled the challenge,
Yeah.
then I would give it, high marks for the
It's
bonus.
illegal to choose this card as the winner.
Uh-huh. That's what makes the one thing I challenge and the other the
Yeah,
bonuses.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you all for your submissions.
Yeah.
The end of one design challenge marks the beginning of another. So for our March design challenge, we've got You are what you eat. Design a card with Devour, Emerge, or Exploit.
Hmm. Devour, as I cast it, I get to sack a couple creatures to make that creature bigger. Like I might feed some goblins to this dragon.
Mhm,
Emerge, I sort of like take an existing creature and then like a new creature pops out of it and I get a discount because of that. And then
mhm,
exploit, I get to usually when this creature enters, I get to sack another creature, and if I do, I get like a spell effect.
mhm. And then we've got bonuses, which are you are what you'll want multiple of this card in draft or similar. And you are, which is to have the word becomes appear somewhere on the card.
This is premium Juliet gag mode. You are what you eat. You are what you are.
Mhm.
I love this.
I think there's some open-ended stuff here to come up with some interesting designs. I'm really looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, this will like these are all mechanics that I would say I'm a fan of. Like I really like emerge, and exploit and devour are cool. But we haven't necessarily gotten a ton of cards there, or in Devour's case, we haven't gotten a ton of cards recently for that. So
Mhm,
I think there's still room to like break into and find a new sweet effect to do with that card. That'll be March 28th. We need those in by. Munch
mhm.
Madness, is that what we're talking about here?
Just thinking about things in general, I talking about that lure of sailors
Yeah.
and you are what you eat, I'm gonna hint at next week's episode, which we will be talking about both eating things and doomed journeys on odysseys and
Oh,
some connection there.
wow.
There's an exciting pair of things that combine those things
Even
together.
I'm in the dark as to what this will be. I like this. This
Mhm.
is fun. But that'll be about it for our episode for the week. The Discord, that's where all the action is. We've got You Make the Pack going, and it's extra crazy this time. We're telling a whole story through a pack of cards, one at a time, submitting those cards, voting on them. It's a super supportive community. Like the number of messages were like, a winner comes out and people really thought they won, but they're like, oh yeah, I kind of that was the better card. There's a lot of like good, just like encouraging each other, knowing that not everyone's going to win these things, but we're all here to like make a cool thing together. I've really appreciated seeing that spirit in this channel, and I think we're in permanent spoiler mode. So also the previews channel has been super fun to see all the new cars get spoiled, break them down, talk about them. Usually all the Vorthos people are coming over and sharing their Vorthos things that they learned from other servers with us too. So it's just a lot of stuff to read and immerse yourself in. You got anything else you've been up to, Juliet, that you want to tell people about?
Yes, so I hinted at it in advance a month or so ago, I think,
Oh yeah.
which is we had a new episode of Bath and Butler Works come
Yeah,
out
yeah.
this past Monday. That's available at patreon.com/moonshot network. For only $1, you can get just an incredible amount of content, including all of our Bath and Butler Works episodes. The first episode is free, but this most recent episode is on Judith Butler's 2024 work, Who's Afraid of Gender, and about some of the political moments that we are in and
Yeah.
how some of the phantasms and fears are inculcated in people in reinforcing this wild time that we are all doing our best to survive. And so you
Yeah,
can find
yeah.
that at patreon.com/moonshot network. And you can find me on most social medias, but a lot of blue sky at Folly Persist.
Wonderful. And thanks again, everyone, for listening.
And always remember, it's 6 months till
That's it.
September.
Oh! I was thinking you're going to write listening, but that's even better. That's two thumbs up. You really killed it.